Most people think silence keeps the peace, but what if I told you that one quiet mistake is the reason people take you for granted? Today, we're uncovering the silent habit that's quietly costing you respect. Most people believe silence keeps the peace. They think staying quiet avoids conflict, preserves relationships, and shows maturity. What they don't realize is that silence without boundaries doesn't protect peace. It quietly gives permission. Every time you say nothing when something matters to you, you are teaching others what you will accept, not through words, but through repetition. Human behavior adapts fast. People learn patterns faster than promises. If someone crosses a line and nothing happens, the mind records that as safe behavior. Not because they are cruel, but because they are human. Tolerance, when it isn't intentional, becomes an unspoken agreement. You didn't say yes, but you didn't say no either. And over time, that quiet space where your voice should have been turns into a habit for others. They interrupt you more. They delay responding to you. They make decisions without considering you. Not all at once, not aggressively, but subtly enough that you question whether you're imagining it. You're not. What's happening is conditioning. Silence trains people more effectively than confrontation ever could. Boundaries aren't loud declarations. They're small, consistent signals that tell people where you end and they begin. When those signals are missing, people fill in the gaps with their own comfort. They assume flexibility where there is actually discomfort. They assume agreement where there is only patience, and patience, when it's endless, stops being respected. It becomes expected. Many good people fall into this mistake because they confuse kindness with self-erasure. They think being understanding means absorbing inconvenience. They think being supportive means staying quiet even when something feels off. But understanding without expression doesn't make you kind, it makes you invisible. And invisibility is not respected, it's used. When you tolerate behavior that drains you, you don't look generous, you look available. When you accept last-minute changes without comment, you don't look easygoing, you look optional. When you let someone speak to you in a dismissive tone and you smile through it, you don't look strong, you look safe to disrespect. Not because you deserve it, but because boundaries are how respect is measured. People rarely wake up one day and decide to take someone for granted. It happens in inches. It happens every time you say, it's fine, when it isn't. Every time you adjust yourself instead of addressing the issue. Every time you prioritize harmony over honesty. The brain notices consistency, not intention. Others don't feel your internal discomfort. They only experience your external silence. Silence can be powerful, but only when it's chosen, not when it's avoidance. Chosen silence has posture. It has presence. Avoidant silence shrinks. One commands space. The other gives it away. Without boundaries, silence doesn't signal strength. It signals absence. The hardest part is that this mistake often feels moral. You tell yourself you're being the bigger person. You tell yourself it's not worth it. You tell yourself they didn't mean it that way. But respect isn't built on intentions, it's built on interactions. If every interaction tells someone that your comfort comes second, eventually they'll believe it shouldn't. Boundaries don't require arguments. They don't require explanations. Often, they're a sentence, a pause, a calm response instead of a quiet one. Saying, that doesn't work for me, instead of rearranging your life. Saying, I'm not okay with that, instead of swallowing irritation. These moments feel uncomfortable at first because you're interrupting a pattern that benefited others. But discomfort is often the price of self-respect. When you start expressing limits, some people will be surprised. Some may resist. That reaction doesn't mean your boundary is wrong. It means the old version of you was easier to navigate. People who valued your silence more than your well-being will reveal themselves quickly. People who respect you will adjust just as quickly. There's a difference between being patient and being permissive. Patience has an endpoint. Permissiveness doesn't. Without boundaries, people don't know when they've crossed a line because the line was never visible. They don't feel guilty because, from their perspective, nothing happened. Silence erased the signal. Respect grows where clarity lives. When people know what you will and won't tolerate, they don't have to guess. Guessing leads to overstepping. Clarity leads to caution. And caution is one of the earliest signs of respect. This silent mistake keeps people stuck because it feels safer in the moment. Speaking up risks tension. Silence feels smooth, but smooth paths don't always lead where you want to go. Over time, the cost of silence becomes heavier than the cost of honesty. You start feeling overlooked. You start feeling undervalued. You start wondering why people don't show up for you the way you show up for them. The answer is often simpler than it feels. People are responding to the version of you that shows them how much space you require. If you require very little, they'll give very little. Not out of malice, but out of alignment. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with rules. They tell people how to enter your life respectfully. Without them, anyone can wander in, rearrange things, and leave without noticing the mess. Silence without boundaries leaves everything unlocked. When you stop tolerating what drains you, you don't become difficult. You become defined. And defined people are harder to take for granted because their presence has shape, weight, and consequence. The moment you begin to replace automatic silence with intentional response, the dynamic changes. People listen differently. They pause more. They check themselves. Not because you demanded respect, but because you demonstrated that access to you comes with awareness. When your needs remain unspoken, the world doesn't magically know them. People are not mind readers, and they rarely act on assumption. Every time you suppress what you want, every time you convince yourself it's not worth mentioning, you train others to treat those needs as optional. Over time, your desires, your boundaries, your comfort, all the things that define your personal space begin to vanish in the eyes of others. Not because they are cruel, not because they want to hurt you, but because the signals you give are silent. Silence teaches more than words ever could, and unfortunately, it teaches that your needs are invisible. This is not about being demanding or selfish. It's about the simple truth that respect is reciprocal. When your needs are consistently ignored, not intentionally, but passively, the balance tips. You begin to feel taken for granted, overlooked, or undervalued. The people around you respond to the pattern you set. If you consistently act as if your needs don't matter, they will treat them as if they don't. It's a subtle conditioning process, almost invisible, until you notice the distance growing, the lack of acknowledgement, the shrinking influence you have over your own environment. Many people make the mistake of believing that expressing needs is a form of weakness, that asking for what they want or need will appear greedy or demanding. So instead, they swallow their discomfort, smile through dissatisfaction, and hope someone notices. But hope is not a strategy. Respect is not given based on what others hope you feel. It's given based on how you show up. When your needs are consistently unspoken, the message sent is clear: your comfort, your boundaries, and your well-being are negotiable, and the world treats them accordingly. This pattern affects every area of life: relationships, work, friendships, even family dynamics. In relationships, the partner who never voices their emotional needs becomes a fixture rather than a participant. Their desires are overlooked because they haven't been communicated. In the workplace, the employee who silently absorbs extra responsibilities without acknowledgement is taken for granted by colleagues and managers. In friendships, the person who always adapts to others' schedules, moods, or preferences is gradually treated as less important than those who assert themselves. Across the board, unspoken needs become invisible needs. The danger is that the person making this mistake often blames the other party for the lack of respect, when in reality it is a two-way street. Respect is not something the world owes. It is something that is cultivated through consistent signals. And the clearest signal you give is how you honor yourself. Speaking up, expressing limits, sharing desires, these are not acts of confrontation, but acts of presence. They demonstrate that you exist fully and deserve consideration. Without them, you exist quietly, and quiet existence is easily overlooked. The key to reversing this pattern is awareness and consistency. Begin by noticing where your needs go unspoken. Are you agreeing to things that inconvenience you just to avoid conflict? Are you remaining silent when someone crosses a boundary that matters? Are you prioritizing others' comfort while ignoring your own? Recognition alone is not enough. You must act. Start small with clear, simple expressions of what you need. Notice the change in how people respond when they realize that your needs are non-negotiable. The shift is subtle at first, but over time, it creates a new rhythm of respect. Consistency is critical. Occasional assertion is insufficient. People test boundaries, often unconsciously, to see whether they hold. If you speak up once and remain silent the next time, the message becomes mixed. If you consistently honor your needs, others adjust, recalibrate, and eventually treat your presence with the seriousness it deserves. Silence is easy, but intentional expression of needs requires courage. The payoff, however, is dignity, recognition, and respect that does not rely on hope or assumption, but on lived reality. It's important to understand that expressing needs does not create conflict. It prevents silent resentment. When people are unaware of your expectations, they cannot meet them. Silence is not neutrality, it is neglect of self. Speaking up is not aggression, it is acknowledgement of value. When your needs are visible, respected, and considered, relationships and interactions shift from transactional to authentic. The energy that was once spent in internal frustration is now available for growth, collaboration, and connection. Ignoring needs also affects self-perception. Every time you fail to express yourself, you reinforce a narrative that your needs are less important, that your voice is optional. This internalized pattern erodes confidence, diminishes agency, and teaches self-neglect. By consistently stating your needs, you reverse that pattern. You communicate not only to others, but also to yourself that your well-being matters, that your presence deserves recognition, and that respect is not something you wait for, but something you cultivate through action. Ultimately, the unspoken needs accumulate silently, creating an invisible pressure that strains relationships, work dynamics, and personal well-being. The world does not respond to what is invisible, it responds to what is demonstrated. By transforming unspoken needs into clearly expressed expectations, you shift the way people interact with you. You move from being overlooked to being acknowledged, from being tolerated to being respected. The quiet mistake of remaining silent about what matters most is powerful precisely because it is invisible. But once recognized and addressed, its reversal is equally transformative.